Well, today we're going to cover carbide lamps and how they work. I love that. It doesn't get old. So, what is a carbide light? When did they come about? How do they work? Why did we use them? Well, if you haven't noticed by now, there's something burning on top of my head. And this here is an oil wick lamp, and it's actually the predecessor to a carbide light. Now, these oil wick lamps came around in the early 1800s, and they replaced the candle, an actual candle that a miner would take underground to light his working area. So it went from 1 candle power up to, like I said, 2 to 4. Not great, but this is what they had. Now, around 1900, they came out with the carbide lamp. Now, this offered not only a brighter light, in some instances, let's say up to 10 candle power, but there wasn't all this soot and smoke. So this was a better option, but a lot of miners at that time had to pay for the tools they used in the company mines. And so if I already own an oil wick lamp, why am I going to pay extra to use a carbide lamp? Just simple things. So you will see oil wick lamp usage well into the early 1900s, and then we came out with the electric mine lamp in about the 1920s. The Westinghouse lamp started coming around 1920s, 1930s, and so you see a replacement of the carbide light and the oil wick lamp by electric lighting, which was much safer, much more reliable, and just all around better. There was no risk of explosion from open flames, and it was better, simply better. The other plus side to running a carbide lamp over an oil wick lamp is if you could imagine you're working in a small mine and you have 100, 200, 500 people working underground all using these oil wick lamps. That's an awful lot of smoke, if you guys can tell in the video. And so on top of all the smoke from all your black powder shots, the coal dust in the air, everything being kicked up, plus all the smoke and soot from all these lamps burning, it made for very poor air quality. There were some instances from Western PA where they had banned certain types of oil because mine inspectors would go in and say that they couldn't see another lit lamp more than 15 feet in front of them because of the amount of smoke in the mine from all these lamps lit. So let's get into the actual working principles of a carbide lamp. Now, the name carbide lamp comes from its fuel, calcium carbide, which is a chemical made that, when it reacts with water, creates a settling gas, providing our light source. And so with most carbide lamps here, you have a reflector. Down here in the middle, you have a nozzle. Off to the side here, we have a striker. Go ahead and open this up. Down here, this lower portion is where your calcium carbide actually goes. And there's this stem right here. In this top, we have a hopper that has water in it. And then you have your actual adjustment here. And so as I move this adjustment to the on position, it was already in the on position. So as I move this to the on position, it's actually going to open up the bottom of this stem here and allow water to drip down into our reservoir of calcium carbide, allowing that reaction to take place, a settling gas to be made, which will then go through a filter in the upper portion here, takes out any larger chunks of calcium carbide, any debris, anything like that, basically gives us a filtered gas, and then that acetylene comes out through this nozzle here and burns to give us our light. Now here's a look at the calcium carbide itself. Looks like little rocks. And that's what it feels like, but it reacts violently with water. So if we pour just a little bit of water on here, see all that bubbling is the acetylene gas being created. We take a lighter, and you can see we are making acetylene gas. A lot of it. So as far as actually getting one of these carbide lamps lit, first thing I'm going to do is unscrew the hopper where our carbide goes. I'm going to set that to the side for a second. I'm going to open up where our water reservoir is, and I'm going to go ahead and top that off. Overfilled it a little bit, but that's all right. Dump some out. Now the biggest thing, especially if you're lighting a lamp for the first time, that you want to check is you want to make sure that no water is leaking by. So you see that drip right now? So that is too much water, and so we're going to go ahead and shut that off all the way. Make sure it does shut off all the way, because if we have too much water dripping onto our carbide, it's going to overpressure that lower reservoir where the carbide is, and there's a rubber gasket, so it'll either blow out there and you're going to have acetylene gas leaking out there. The other thing to check is to make sure your nozzle is actually clean and clear, because if this gas doesn't have a way to leave, it'll overpressure and cause this lower hopper to rupture, which I do have a few where these are bulged out, split, cracked, and these nozzles do become plugged fairly easily. So now that I can see that the water is off, I'm going to set that off to the side. Take a little bit of our calcium carbide. Now it doesn't have to be all the way full, but we'll fill that up about halfway for now and screw this together. Now, like I said, there is a rubber gasket around here. So once that's screwed together, what I can do is just turn our water on just a little bit, and you'll actually be able to smell the acetylene. It has a very distinct smell to it. The other thing you can do is keep them separated as you turn the water on. And so right there, there's a water drop forming. And as that falls down and in, you'll be able to see that little puff of steam. So that's what we're looking for. And so to light this, that'll be about right. Might give it one more pop there. Just get the reaction going a little bit faster. Now we're going to screw this together. I did turn the water back down. And then the whole idea of the striker on the side of these lamps is actually for you to cover that lens with the palm of your hand. And the striker sits right up against the edge of your hand. And so as you do that, acetylene gas builds up inside that lens. And so then when you draw your hand sideways like this, it hits the striker and lights that pocket of acetylene. So we're going to give this a whirl. So we'll give it a couple seconds to build up. I make sure that I have pressure against the striker, and there's our carbide light. And then this would get mounted to a soft cap like this, to a hard hat, whatever they were using at the time, but that's how a carbide light works. And you can turn them up a little bit by adjusting your water. So you see the flame getting bigger, and I mean, it's honestly a pretty decent light. And like I said, there's no smoke. Now, if you do put this flame up against something, it does soot up. And so in a lot of old mines, you'll find where miners had actually made artwork by drawing with that flame, and either drew pictures, signed their names, whatever they did. But if you guys like what you saw, like and subscribe, follow me, and there'll be a lot more videos like this to come. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll get them answered as best as I can. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next video.